Hi there. I'm not sure who's logged in yet. I'm a couple of seconds early. Oh, we are live. Okay, so this is my first live, and probably people are going to see me mess up, but I apologize for that. My name is Scarlett Kol. I'm a young adult author, storyteller, and YouTuber here on the platform, and I'm really excited to be part of this AuthorTube virtual retreat right now. I basically just started on AuthorTube back in January, so I am relatively new at this process, but I'm really excited to be here and to be a part of an event with all of these fantastic AuthorTubers that I myself watch. So I only have, hi everybody. I only have a half an hour for this one, so I'm probably going to whip through as quick as I possibly can. But if you do have any comments or questions, you can definitely throw them up there and I will try to address them either towards the end or as they come up. So basically mine is on word sprinting and word sprinting hacks. If you've been following along with the live writes already, you probably already know what a word sprint is, but a word sprint essentially is you set a timer and you sit down and you try to write as much as you possibly can during that amount of time. So it's a pretty basic concept. A lot of authors are really like to use word sprints when they are doing a lot of writing because it allows them to concentrate for certain periods of time and then it gives them a break in between. So writing sprints can be very useful to get a lot of words out, even if you are doing it for like hours and hours and hours, you still break it out into these manageable, smaller chunks. This is also something that is referred to as the Pomodoro method that was created on concentrating and focusing on your work, which is typically 25 minutes of concentrated work and then a break 25 minutes. And I believe you do them in series of 4 is the traditional setting. But a lot of people will do writing sprints in shorter time periods, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, or longer periods, 45 to 60, depending on where things sit. So basically, not every word sprint is created equally. Just because you've decided you're going to sit down and write for half an hour doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be the most productive that you can be. So I do have a few suggestions that you can use to try to make your writing sprints a little bit more effective. Okay, so here we go. The first thing is basically writing without distractions. The whole point of doing a writing sprint is to be focused. If you are not completely focused, then obviously that's going to be a problem. A lot of people know about shutting off their social media or closing the door or doing what they need to do. But one of the things that I find is the most useful for writing sprint constant distraction-free writing sprints is basically putting my phone on the opposite side of the room or outside of the room. Why is that? That's twofold. One, it is not allowing me to go onto my phone. Even though you probably have in your mind that you don't want to go on your phone and you aren't going to go on your apps and all that sort of thing, it doesn't mean that other people in your life know that or are going to be aware of that. You're probably still going to get text messages. You might get phone calls, all of those sorts of things. If your phone is beside you, even if you've decided that you aren't going to answer it, as soon as you see that notification pop up or you see somebody's name, you're going to be slightly distracted, wondering what it is that they want to talk to you about or what the message is. So you aren't going to be as focused on what you're doing. If your phone is out of sight, then basically you're not going to see those messages coming through. You're not going to see those phone calls coming through, and they aren't going to be able to distract you. In most cases, most people out there can wait 20 minutes or 45 minutes. At a worst case scenario, if you're doing a 45-minute sprint, if they called you like the second you started, the longest they would have to wait is 45 minutes. I don't know any customer service line in the world that gets back to you that fast. So unless you are in something where you are in a life or death scenario, or you do have a situation where somebody can't wait, I would suggest putting your phone across the room somewhere that you can't physically see it. The second reason for that is a lot of people put the timer on their phone. Some use their computer, but I like to put it on my phone, and I get distracted by looking at the timer or wondering how much time I have left. If I can't see that timer and that timer is away from me, then I'm not focusing on how much time I have left. I'm actually focusing on the words that I'm writing. So this is a suggestion that you can have to try to be a little bit more distraction-free. The more distraction-free you are, the more you can focus on your writing. The more you can focus on your writing, the faster and more words that you can get out during your sprint. The second suggestion for improving your writing sprints would basically be to have accountability. So writing is a pretty solitary thing. unless you have events like this, which are absolutely fantastic, where there's a ton of people that you can join in and you can comment and you can say how you did. Those are really, really good for accountability. So I have a group of friends, and maybe you have a group of friends that you could set up, that we have a messaging system that is called sprinting. We have it separate because it's not everybody can sprint at the same time. So if you are working during the day and people are writing, you can mute them without actually muting any important conversations that you need to have with these people. But it's also really helpful even when they aren't sprinting. It's nice to be able to go on, okay, I'm going to start at the top of the hour. Is anybody going to come with me? Yeah, it's awesome to have those people there. But if they can't, just having people in a string like that for you, they can still be encouraging. Like, even if I'm just writing, I'm going to start at the top of the hour and everybody else is busy, I'm going to come back in, let's say an hour later. Yeah, I got 837 words. I have a cheerleading group that's going to be like, yes, that's awesome. Good for you. And it really, really helps to keep the momentum going, even if somebody isn't physically writing with you. It's somebody else there giving you that feedback that is allowing you to keep going, even if they aren't actually writing with you. If they can write with you, all the better. But if they can't, then it's still giving you that little push to keep going. Plus, you know you've told them you're writing. So if I don't answer back in about an hour or so, they're going to be like, hey, Scarlett, how did it go? So if I just decided to 2 minutes into it, start watching YouTube videos for an hour, I'm totally busted. That means I'm either going to have to lie, which is probably not the best route to take with my friends, or I'm actually going to have to admit that I didn't do the writing I said I was going to do. If you are by yourself, there are other ways to be accountable. One that's very popular is for the words. I think that's great because you can gamify things. Essentially, it is a game where you can level up by writing words. The only thing with that is there's a subscription involved. So after your first 30 days, you will have to pay for that. But if it's something that works for you, you should definitely check it out. I have played, I was a big Zelda fan. So I really liked to be able to level up and weapon up and all that fun stuff. If it's something for you, you might want to check that out. But if you don't want to do something that's free, you can gamify things on your own. The thing that I am doing right now is I've just started watching The Magicians. I don't know if you have any Magicians fans yet. I'm only a little bit into the first season, but I have promised myself that I watched the first couple episodes till I got really into it. And then I decided that I'm not allowed to watch any more episodes until I get words down. So I can't watch episode 4 until I have 1,000 words. And then after I watch episode 4, I need to have another 1,000 words into this project, or I'm not allowed to watch episode 5. So if I don't write for 3 days, then basically, I can't keep watching the show that I want to watch, even if I really, really, really want to. So giving yourself things that to work up to like that, especially when you're at, yes, JJ Otis, The Magicians is great. Giving yourself these little treats to work up to can definitely help have that accountability when you don't have an accountability partner or an accountability group to go to. The next thing I'm going to suggest, and this is several fold for this one, is data. During the day, I am a CPA, and so I just absolutely adore data. And there's a lot of people who don't, but it can really, really help you maximize your word sprints. So the first thing you need to do, just like anything they tell you with a budget or a diet or whatever, is you need to track your data. You can do it very easily in a notebook, or you can get something that is more specific. I am not affiliated with them. I just really like it. They have this sprinting journal for authors that's on Amazon from Author Stationery. And basically it breaks everything down for you, just saying your sprint length, your project, how many words you did, milestones, all that fun stuff. So I think the key things that you need to write down is how long was your sprint? What time was your sprint? How many words you got? And if there's any special notes about your sprinting. So for instance, about a month ago, I did a virtual writing retreat with my friends, and my 2 very rambunctious children decided to explode an entire can of soup over my entire kitchen. So during that word sprint, I didn't get a lot of words out, and I left myself a note saying that I was distracted. This will come into play a little bit later when I discuss that data. So every time you sit down to write, you're going to want to write down how you're doing on your sprints, and you will be able to use that data for a lot of positive reasons for planning your projects and your word sprints later. After a while, you may get into a flow of knowing all of this sort of stuff, and you might want to hang back on that. But I do find that even after you are comfortable with your sprinting, that it's always good for a refresher to start collecting your data again periodically, just so you can double check that everything has stayed the same. So what do you do with all of this data when you have it? First thing you're going to look for is what your lowest sprint time was. So basically, if you're doing consistent sprints throughout the day, you're going to want to find out which sprints had the lowest word count. When you look at that, you probably want to throw out any outliers. So like obviously my soup example, I wouldn't include that in my data as my lowest word count. So I would find my lowest word count. What's the importance of this? This is pretty much my worst case scenario for finishing a project. When people try to plan projects, a lot of times they will overestimate how quickly they can write something. So if you plan your projects based on your lowest possible word count per sprint, then you are probably going to give yourself enough buffer time to do that. So let's say, for instance, in a half an hour, you write 500 words. So you know that that's about 500 words a sprint. If you have a 50,000 word project, then you can divide that by 500 to know exactly how many sprints approximately it's going to take you to finish. Most of the time, you're going to write more than this 500 words, which means you're going to finish ahead of your schedule. Finishing ahead of your schedule is going to be a morale boost for you. But if you fall back a couple of days or you miss a day or something, then that's going to give you that extra buffer time in there to still finish your projects on time. Whereas if you went off your highest sprinting time to figure out your project, and let's say your highest sprinting time was 1,500 words, that's 3 times your lowest, which means that you would have to be at peak performance every single sprint that you're writing this project. If you're at peak performance that entire time, you could risk burning out or just not finishing in time because it actually takes you longer than you think it is. So knowing what your lowest reasonable sprint time is definitely going to help you in being able to plan your projects going forward. The other important thing about knowing your lowest sprint time is knowing when those things happen and why. So when are your lowest sprints? Is that right at the beginning of a sprinting session? Is it at the end of a sprinting session? Is it in the middle because you've been doing it for 8 hours and you're bogged down? Is it in the morning? Is it later at night? Is it in the afternoon? Knowing when you are the slowest and also when you're the fastest will be very helpful for you because you can start to try and figure out when the best times for you are to write. I've done this several times, and no matter when I start writing, whether I start first thing in the morning, whether I start later in the afternoon, I always write faster between about 2 and 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't know why that is. I don't understand it, but that is when I write the fastest. I can start writing at 8 o'clock in the morning. My best sprints are going to be between 2 and 4. I can start writing at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. My best sprints are still going to be between 2 and 4 because that is why because that's my best time of day. It doesn't work very well during my day job, but when I have a weekend or something like that, and I know I only have like 1 or 2 hours to write, I'm going to try to schedule that in the afternoon as much as I possibly can because I know I'm most productive or most creative between 2 and 4 in the afternoon. So that doesn't always work. Sometimes you just got to write at 8, but I know I am not one of those get up 6 a.m. before the rooster writers. That's not who I am. My sprints in the morning are always my lowest, no matter how I'm feeling, how awake I am, how tired I am. It does not matter. My morning sprints are always, always slow. And my afternoon ones are always the best. So Keelan, she already knows. She says she's an early AM and late PM writer, and because that's when she's more focused. Mine happens to be in the afternoon, and that's what works for me. And everybody is going to be different. But knowing that will be able to let you plan things a lot better and try to get the most maximum words out by writing during your peak time. The next thing you're going to want to know is what is your fastest time? So your fastest time, obviously, you're going to want to know to figure out those time periods. But the other reason to know your fastest time is to avoid being too optimistic. Because if you tell yourself, let's sit back and say, okay, I have a 50,000 word novel and I want to finish it in a month, which means it's over 1,000 words a day. And assuming you're not actually going to write every single day, then it's going to be really tough to get that 50,000 words in a month if your fastest sprint is only 800 words, and you don't have hours and hours to write. Because basically a lot of people out there, when you break it down into smaller blocks, it seems simple. It seems simple to say 1,000 words a day isn't going to be a big deal. But if you don't write that fast and you don't have that much time, then you're just going to stress yourself out because you're going to make these unrealistic expectations you're never going to meet. So knowing what your fastest time is, that is you at peak performance. So if you had to run at peak performance all the time, you'd never make it. And secondly, that's the fastest you can do. So if you can only write 1,000 words in a word sprint, do not plan that you're going to do 1,500 words every sprint, because it's not going to happen and you're just going to disappoint yourself. So being realistic with your expectations really helps to not set yourself up for disappointment, because if you do set yourself up for disappointment, writing is a huge mental game and that's going to bog down on your writing. If you feel that you're accomplishing things, you're going to write faster and you're going to write better. If you feel like you're failing yourself, you're going to write slower because it's going to bog down on your brain. However, I do have to pause for a second because my alarm just went off, and my alarm means that it is time for the secret word. So my secret word for the contest, so make sure that you are filling out the form below in the description box, is rockstar. So make sure that you put rockstar in your feedback form to be entered for the prizes. Let's put that away. So good luck to everybody who has been entering the contest and who have been at all the live write-in sessions so far and all of the other panels. I've stopped into several of them so far today and they've been really, really great. So yeah, if you haven't had a chance to watch them, most of them, there will be playbacks. So go back when you have some time and get to watching when you can. So, all right. I will get back. All right. So knowing your fastest word sprint will keep you from making unrealistic goals for yourself and reducing your anxiety as a writer. The next thing you need to know is what your average is. So let's say 1,000 is your top, 500 is your bottom. Your average is, let's say, 700. So knowing your average is going to be a little bit more reasonable. I prefer to do the worst case scenario when I plan a project. I am going to budget a project based on 500 words. That's what I suggest doing. But some people find that's a little aggressive because they know they're going to do better than that. And that's why I plan that way. But if you want to do something that's a little bit more useful, then that's kind of somewhere in between, then take your average word sprint to plan out your projects. So then that way you aren't telling yourself you need to go full guns all the time, but you know that you're going to do a little bit better than the 500 words or your minimum, whatever that is. The next thing you need to look at in your data is you need to look at how many times you wrote down that you were distracted. Why is this important? This is important because you're going to see how reasonable you are in terms of being able to write. So maybe you have 3 kids running around and you just do in a 2-bedroom apartment and it's just not reasonable to be completely undistracted. Maybe you have roommates, maybe you live in a loud apartment block, maybe whatever the reason may be. If you are constantly writing distracted, then maybe you need to block out some time or think about leaving the house. Maybe this may not be the best time to be doing that, but maybe you need to leave the house to get that distraction-free writing. Or you might think you're not doing too bad, but you'll notice that, hey, I actually never had one full sprint until 3 hours in because I was constantly doing something else and I was constantly stopping. If you write for a long period of time, you might not realize how many times you actually stop to do something else when you should be writing. So if you notice that you have a habit of distractions, then you can sit back and try and figure out where those are coming from. Is this on you? Can you just not sit there that long? If it is, maybe your sprints are too long. Maybe you're trying to do something that doesn't fit for you. Maybe, like I said, you need to change venue. Maybe it's not the best time of day for you to be writing because you are constantly distracted, because you aren't focused. So being able to understand where those distractions are coming from and what you can do to fix them will get you into a less distracted, more focused space to be able to write. More focus, less distraction, faster, better writing. The other thing that I did want to recommend too, once you've got that data, is to experiment. Like I said, my focus changes during the day. I am an afternoon writer. That's when I write, and that's when I write the best. So I try to focus around that whenever I can. But the only way I found that out was by writing in the morning and writing at night and writing super early in the morning and writing in the afternoon and on my lunch break and all that sort of thing to figure it out. I see somebody missed the secret word. I think we need to show the secret word again. Secret word is rock star. So make sure you get that down, rock star. And I will mention it again before the video is over. So the only way I found that out is through experimentation. The other thing is, how long are your sprints? I write with friends who write 45-minute sprints. I can't do 45-minute sprints. I will sometimes, but I find they drag out too long for me and I do lose focus because I tracked my distractions. So for me, I find that 20-minute sprints are just pretty much good because that's where I'm kind of getting to that point where I'm starting to wane a little bit. I actually started with 25-minute sprints and I thought I was doing really, really good. And I decided to keep experimenting. And then I tried 20-minute sprints. I can write the same amount of words in 20 minutes that I can write in 25 minutes. So why wouldn't I do 20-minute sprints when I've got the same productivity? I wouldn't have known that unless I tried. Try 10 minutes, try an hour, and see what happens to you and what your sprinting times are going to be. Obviously, this is not something you want to do on a deadline, but if you have the time to do that, you want to experiment with different times of day to find out what your optimal sprinting time is. What I mentioned before is maybe you'll stop tracking after you kind of get into a flow, but periodically you should come back and start tracking your stuff again because things change. Just like every book you write, the process sometimes changes a little bit when you're dealing with different characters and a different plot. Sometimes over time, your writing ability and your writing focus changes. Maybe something else in your life has changed. And so now you are better focused late at night. Maybe one day I will be a morning writer. I have a strange feeling I'm not. I really like my sleep. But there is a possibility that that could change for you over time if your circumstances change. Or if this book is written in shorter, briefer chapters. Maybe you will do better with a shorter sprint. If it's a lot more world building, maybe you need that longer sprint for this particular project because you really need to get yourself into it before you start producing words. So one thing, the best tip that I can probably give you about word sprints is experiment, try different things, and see what works for you. Because just because your friends do 45-minute sprints every morning does not mean that you are a 45-minute morning sprinter. You can still do that with them, but you will probably notice that your word counts will suffer for it. And not saying that you shouldn't, it's just know that you are not going to be at your maximum output. So those are most of my tips on how to get the most out of your Oh, there's one more. Get up from your desk. Make sure that you are, even for 5 minutes, walk around, have a drink of water, go somewhere else. If you are sitting and writing for long periods of time, it is not good for your body to be sitting there that long. And anytime that I have done long periods of writing, if I take a walk sometime in the middle, even if it's around the block or around my house, I tend to be a little bit more refreshed when I come back. Sorry, I forgot that one. So those are my tips for improving your writing sprints and making sure that you make the most out of them. If anybody has any questions, make sure to put them in the comments below. Like I said, I am a rather new author tuber on the channel. And if you would like, you can hit that red subscription bar and the notification bell for whenever I put up a new video. I put up new videos every Thursday to which I talk about writing and publishing advice. My video this week is going to be talking about basics on BookBub, featured deals. So I'll be talking about that. And so that is, I put up vlogs periodically, but mostly it's on Thursdays. So I see Keelan is saying, I thought I was a long sprinter. Now I'm 100% sure 25 minutes is my sweet spot. Exactly. I used to think I would be a long sprinter too, because if you haven't noticed, I like to talk and I'm very long-winded, but I actually do better with the shorter sprints. And I was actually pretty shocked about that. And I did find some of those longer sprints, I would bog a little bit, like my mind would wander a little bit more, and I would spend a little bit more time. If I have time to look up other words, I'm probably writing too slowly. I'm notorious for trying to thesaurus things when I should be drafting. So that the 20 minutes tends to be my sweet spot. I thought 25 was mine, but 20 I can do better. And oh, sorry, I'm just seeing the comments come through. So I'm just starting to thank everybody saying great tips. Awesome. Thank you so much for watching. And so has anybody been to the live write-in so far? Has anybody been getting their words out today? Maybe, possibly. Nobody's admitting to it. So maybe they're just watching along and getting everything, getting all of the great advice from all of the fantastic panelists, and then are planning to get some of their writing done later tonight. I know there's quite a few sprints that they have going on. Basically, I think one started at 3 o'clock at the same time as this video, or sorry, I'm in Central Time, 4 o'clock, and at the same time as this video, and going on for the next few hours. So that's fantastic. Keelan's been to the sprints. That's awesome. So hopefully she's got some words in. I wrote kind of in the middle there today, so mostly just the panelists today. Well, that happens. There's a lot of really good stuff. I was in for Mandy Lynn's this morning. I did see the editing Bard as well, and that one was really great. If you have a chance to check it out, you should go back and watch his for sure. And then, yeah, there were some during the live stream with Keelan. Yes, I watched that too. That was really, really good. So for anybody who just jumped in, I just want to make sure that you are getting that secret word, because these are really important for the feedback forms. So I will throw that up here. And hopefully you guys have been enjoying this event. I would like everybody to say thank you to Keelan Rivers, because she is the one who planned all of this stuff. And she is the one to thank for doing this. So if you are really liking it, make sure you are giving positive feedback, and maybe she'll be nice and do it again sometime. Sorry, I'm seeing comments through. First one I can join today. I finished drafting my, oh, Kate Adams finished drafting their work in progress. Oh, that's awesome. So editing sprints are always fun. I am a better editor than I am a writer. I don't know how some people feel about that, but one of the things I find with editing sprints is just basically going by time, because I never know exactly how long it's going to take to do a page. Some go fast, some go slow. So it's, I always typically go by time for editing. Oh, I have a question. Do you prefer different lengths for writing versus editing sprints? Yes, I will go longer for an editing sprint, just because editing takes me longer. I like the 45s for editing. I find an hour's like almost too much, because I can typically get through a chapter, as long as I'm not doing major rewrites, as long as I can typically get through a full chapter in about 45 minutes, because I write very short chapters. So that tends to work for me. 20 minutes is just not enough. Like, I'm barely getting through a page and I'm trying to race through it. And with editing, I want to be taking my time a little bit more than I do with the writing. If I take too long with writing, I'm second guessing myself all the time. If I take too long with the editing, then, I mean, if I'm going too short with the editing, then I'm racing through it, and that's not what I want to do. So I will do that. And typically I will only edit in sprints if I'm doing it with other people. I don't typically edit sprints in general. I just sit down and do the work. But if other people are doing writing sprints and I want that accountability and I want to be part of the crew, then I will do editing sprints just to try and move that along. Aw, Keelan is saying about all the lovely volunteers. That's wonderful. I don't want to go too long here. I knew I had a half an hour, so I clearly said all of that very quickly, and hopefully you understood, because I know I talk really fast sometimes. But yeah, we have less than a minute left to go. And oh, Keelan has another question. I have another question. I'm fairly new to writing sprints, just got into them this year. Do you prefer writing alone or with other people? I prefer writing with other people, but not necessarily in the same space. I like to be by myself when I'm doing it, but it's but to have somebody to talk to. I have done writing retreats. I just went to one in Chicago last October, and that was wonderful. But we all basically went to our own place in the house, even though we were all together. We were all kind of separate, just to have that that space. I find myself, I get distracted watching the other people, seeing what they're doing, and then like wondering what they're listening to on their headphones, and what they're writing about, and if they're chewing on their pencil, which is totally not necessary. So if I'm watching other people, I get distracted really, really easily. I'm much better off by myself, segregated, but to have somebody to check in with as soon as I finish and before I start, and just to keep me going. When we do sprints, usually on the weekends with my friends, we actually do a Skype chat afterwards to kind of like decompress and talk about it and say if there's any issues that any of us had, so that we can talk through it. And that's actually been really helpful. And we started doing that before the pandemic, and even more so now that we're all at home. And I am officially over time. So, oh yes, and I am very close to 100 subs. So if anybody wants to like and share, this would be wonderful. So I'm over time. I'm going to let you guys go so you can get back to your writing sprints. Like I said, I have videos on Thursdays. Hit that red subscription bar. Check out the feedback form in the description box. In the description box also has the rest of the links for the rest of the retreat. So make sure you're checking out those other videos. Make sure you're supporting the other author tubers, and you guys have a great week. Thanks, guys.